The final two episodes of Castlevania Nocturne Season 2 are without a doubt some of the best action animation I have ever seen, and that is saying a lot. I would compare this final fight to something as impressive as the Sukuna and Maharaga fight in JJK. But besides just the animation, there are a ton of lessons to be learned from the storytelling that happens in this show, and I think that animators everywhere would benefit from sitting down and studying this epic fight. In this video, we're going to do just that. I'm going to explain why this show's different sequences are such a masterclass in action animation. But before we dive into it, I need to let you know that this video will contain spoilers for Season 2 of Castlevania Nocturne. If you haven't seen it yet, please go watch it and then come right back here so you don't miss the breakdown. The first thing that is of note is the incredible lack of dialogue that takes place during this fight. In episode 7, once they start fighting, it's over 5 minutes until someone else speaks. It's Richter who talks to Annette, and they're only speaking because they are outside of combat. During combat, there are only a few lines that take place. Just calls out to Maria when she falls off of her dragon and he catches her, and Drolta disses Olrox for his betrayal. This might start to sound like I'm picking on anime, but let me explain. There are no obnoxious callouts as to what is happening on screen. There are no special attack names that take place during the fight. There aren't any characters giving any internal monologues explaining ad nauseum their feelings or the play-by-play of what is happening. There are no flashbacks. There are no tragic backstories to delve into. There are no villains rambling on and on in a monologue about their evil plans and desires. There is only the fight, first and foremost. The action is the focus, and anything besides the action would only take away that focus and lose the overall impact that the entire fight has. The reason that the storytellers can get away with this is because those things have already taken place. The villains' backstories have been explained in flashbacks at the beginning of each episode of Season 2. Their plan and their goals are not secret. They want to dominate the entire world and plunge it into darkness. All of the good guys' moves and powers have been explored and realized outside of this fight, and therefore they are free to get creative with those powers once the fighting begins. There is no new information that might detract from the fight because it has been covered already. Therefore, the show's creators can focus on the fight alone. They give us exactly what we want as an audience. The action takes the main stage. And speaking of the main stage, I want to let you all know that I am going to release a few new merch designs periodically throughout 2025. This time we've got the Studio Gimli design and the Gomenasai NASA design. You can order these designs on t-shirts, long sleeves, crew necks, and hoodies. But wait, there's more. Use the promo code DrewMalou2025 and you can get 25% off your entire order store-wide. But be quick because there are only 25 of these coupons available. I might drop some new merch designs and some more coupon codes in the future, so be on the lookout for that. One of the things that this fight does the best is provide the viewer a visual explanation of what's happening. Anything that requires an explanation can be done so visually, without needless dialogue or exposition. This is probably the best example of an action scene showing and not telling that I can think of in recent memory. But let me give you a few examples of what I'm talking about. Just has control of his ice, even when it's in midair. He drops a giant icicle on Erzsébet and crashes her into a building. So later, it makes perfect sense when Richter also controls his ice shurikens. We've seen this ability before and we're already familiar with it. When Alucard and Richter try to attack Drolta, she freezes them in midair. She blasts Alucard away with magic because he's unable to escape. But when she goes to attack Richter, he is able to break free and fight back. This increases the hype of the moment because we know how powerful Alucard is, and even he was unable to escape. But probably the best example of what I am talking about is the Team Dragon attack. We see Maria command her dragon to breathe fire at Erzsébet. This happens a couple of times in the fight and is nothing new except for one simple thing. We see Just step up and begin to cast his magic, only this time he looks up at the dragon, and when he waves his hand forward, instead of casting magic, the dragon's flames change color. Richter sees this and understands exactly what's happening. Now, of course, Richter wants in on the party, and so he too adds his magic to the dragon's flame breath attack, which then gives us this hypersonic sounding ultimate Kamehameha flame attack. We also see some interesting shockwave and hyperstyle impact frames in this section of the fight. Erzsébet then switches up her tactics and attacks Annette, who is vulnerable, forcing Richter to run over and try to save her. Erzsébet's power overwhelms him, and then she is free to attack Just and Maria, and Just tries to protect Maria with an ice wall, but is also overwhelmed. They are knocked unconscious and are out of the fight. This whole section is so interesting to me because there is not a single line of dialogue spoken between any of the characters throughout this entire part. This is such a rare phenomenon. I can only think of a few examples that are similar in anime, where there is such little dialogue and exposition taking place. The creators are able to get away with it here because they have a tremendous respect for the audience's ability to process what is happening in the fight visually. As the team continues to fight and assault Erzsébet, we see that their attacks begin to take a toll. For example, when Just slams her out of the sky with a massive shard of ice, we see that she has the ability to heal herself and she quickly closes the gaping wound. However, as the fight continues, her healing factor stops being able to keep up with the amount of damage that she is sustaining in the fight. Her arm is ripped off in the dragon's mouth and never returns. She is then dropped into a field of ice spikes and is impaled multiple times, losing an eye and suffering a few large piercing wounds. By the end of the fight, she is still vehemently resisting the group, but is also coughing up blood. We can tell that she has suffered severe internal injuries from the absolute beatdown she got from Richter and is currently undergoing massive hemorrhaging. Now, we have seen these heroes fight Erzsébet before, and it did not go well. She is much more powerful than they are. It is only because Annette can suppress her connection to the Egyptian goddess Sekhmet that they are able to resist her successfully. When Erzsébet realizes this, that's why she begins to target Annette. All of this information is conveyed through the visual scenes that we see. We are never explicitly told what is happening or why it's happening. All of that crucial information has been discussed previously in the story so that we can simply watch and enjoy the work that the animators put into making the fight as incredible as possible. I really enjoyed that aspect of this show and wish others followed suit as well. There are so many things that they were able to tell us without having to go into a distracting breakdown of characters' abilities or a backstory on how things properly work. For instance, we know that Maria, while she fights with spirit creatures, is still risking her own body because she feels all of the blows that her creatures sustain in the fight. We see her get a bloody nose after her dragon takes a punch. We can assume that any damage her creatures take, she also feels. Likewise, we know that Annette's ability to fight Sekhmet consumes a ton of energy and produces a tremendous amount of strain and body heat. We know this because when Richter touches her, he burns his hand. He creates a shell of ice to try and help cool Annette down, but even that begins to melt almost instantly as soon as she touches it. These little bits of information are important and help to raise the stakes that our characters are facing without spending a single extra second on an unnecessary explanation. It goes to show just how fantastic the storytelling is in this show, and it's all because they have a great faith in the audience's ability to understand what is happening. We need more good storytellers like this in the animation industry, and that's why I recommend the Anime Art Academy. Do you want to learn the latest manga and anime trends and techniques for a fraction of the price of traditional art school? When you become a member, you can get unlimited feedback on your art from actual Japanese mangakas and illustrators, which will fast track your progress as an artist. You can join a community of supportive, like-minded individuals, and once you reach a professional level, Anime Art Academy can even help you get started working in Japan. They offer lesson packs that are available for purchase as bundles, with lifetime access to any lessons you purchase. But if that is too much money upfront, you can opt for the monthly plan and get access to a few lessons each month for an even smaller cost. But the best part is, they offer free taster courses to see if this service is right for you, so make sure to try it before you buy it. I see this service as an absolute triple win. You get a fantastic product that helps you become a better artist, I earn a commission from sales which makes videos like this one possible, and together we help support the industry by bringing new artists and fresh ideas into the workforce. So please click the link in this video's description or the pinned comment if you want to check out the Anime Art Academy. Thanks for listening, now back to the video. There were so many fantastic elements that were on display here, so let's discuss what I thought were the most successful factors in Castlevania Nocturne Season 2, by looking at what the animators did and what they didn't do. Let's start with the negative. What didn't the animators do? They didn't baby the audience. Sometimes it can be difficult for certain action scenes to make sense without the proper context. Sometimes you do need an explanation to understand what the heck is going on. But more often than not, I believe you can accomplish this before the action ever takes place. And this leads me to the second thing the creators didn't do. They don't cheat the action. It's kind of interesting. Whether you're doing a live action movie or an animated show, action scenes are always more expensive to create. There are more moving parts, you have to be very clear with your visual language, and it takes much more effort to produce. That's why so many shows use dialogue in the middle of their action scenes. It's not just to explain. A character talking is easier to animate than a character delivering a flurry of blows. Or an even bigger killer of action scenes, switching to a different scene altogether, which is my third point. They don't cut away unnecessarily. There is no bigger killer of hype than just cutting away to something completely different right when the scene is about to get good. Shows and movies do this all the time, and it drives me absolutely nuts every time. So much so that I want to make a video in the future about this very thing, explaining why this is a garbage decision every time. Now, Castlevania does cut away from the action, but it's for a very specific reason. And this moves us into the positive. What did the show do well? The first thing has to do with cutting to different scenes, and that is the pacing of the show. In the last 2 episodes of Season 2, when the show cuts from one scene to another, they are always cutting to a different fight happening somewhere else in the city. There is no slowing down. There isn't a cut to a scene with 2 characters having tea, discussing some evil plot or something trivial and unrelated. Every cut helps to push the struggle forward and progresses the story through its various conflicts happening at the same time. The second thing they do well is the choreography. This has to do with the quality of the action scenes. Castlevania has long been one of my favorite examples of how to produce excellent action scenes. The choreography should be a dance between the characters, and oh boy do they deliver on that dance. One of the biggest reasons they are able to deliver on that dance is because of the third point. What do the storytellers do well? They get creative. Don't be afraid to use your character's abilities in new and unique ways, like the Team Dragon Blast, or when Juiced sets up a field of ice spikes and Erzsébet falls crashing down into them. Instead of just shooting ice at her, make her the projectile that crashes into the ice. You shouldn't be afraid to hype things up. Sure, one team might have a dragon, but the other team can literally suplex that dragon, or even just caber toss that sucker into a freaking building. Fights are supposed to be entertaining, so why not hype them up with some crazy new stuff that the audience might not be expecting? You don't have to be completely unrealistic, but you can always go a little bigger. And the last thing that this show does really well is to remember its roots. At the end of the day, this is a Castlevania show, so it should feel like Castlevania. One of the ways that the creators do this is through Alucard's abilities. When he gets stabbed by Drolta and then immediately turns into bats, I got so hyped. It's a direct throwback to his abilities in Castlevania Symphony of the Night. There, you can morph into a bat and fly around Dracula's castle. His super speed is also a direct throwback. When you are using Alucard's sword, you have an ability where Alucard dashes forward and does 2 swings with his sword, cloaked in that familiar red glow. But I think the throwback that I had been waiting for most was his use of the magic spell called Hellfire. When you cast this spell, a giant column of light emits from Alucard, and you can teleport a short distance before launching a fireball attack. If you hold up during the teleport, you can launch a fireball similar to the ones Dracula uses in the prologue and in earlier seasons of the Castlevania show called Dark Inferno. This is what Alucard uses against Drolta, and I got so hyped when I saw him bust it out against his enemies. There are so many lessons to be learned from this show, and I hope that you all will study it and appreciate it a little more because of this video. I'm going to try my best to make as much content this upcoming year as possible, and I have a lot of ideas that I'm excited to share with you guys. There is tons of amazing animation that is going to be coming out soon as well, so I hope you're ready for more videos. And thanks to the patrons whose continued support made this video possible, especially Javi G. You, my friend, are an absolute king. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Malou, and I'll see you storytellers in the next video.